You do not enter this hospital because you trust it. You enter because whatever is happening inside your body now scares you more than the place people whisper about in lowered voices. That is the first thing that would break a modern person. In the 1800s, a hospital is not automatically a refuge. It is a gamble played with pain, infection, class, and luck. The moment you step through the door, one truth closes around you. You may leave healed, you may leave worse, or you may not leave under your own strength at all. Before the sun is fully up, you already regret coming here. The building rises out of the street like a promise that stopped believing in itself. All stone, damp plaster, and tall windows that let in light without warmth. Relief is supposed to live in places like this. Instead, the first thing you feel is exposure. Every smell, every stare, every rough hand on your sleeve tells you the same thing. Modern medicine has not arrived yet, and your body understands that before your mind does. The entrance does not welcome you so much as absorb you. Boots drag in mud from the street, and that mud mixes with rainwater, ashes, horse filth, and the dust that settles on every public surface in a city powered by smoke, sweat, and animal labor. The air inside is thicker than outside. It carries vinegar, cheap soap, boiled linen, chamber pots, wet wool, stale breath, and the iron tang of recent procedures. Not always blood, at least not in the dramatic way people imagine, but the lingering residue of bodies under strain. You give your name if anyone cares to ask for it. If you are poor, you may be treated like a burden before you are treated like a patient. If you have a little money, you buy yourself privacy, cleaner sheets, quicker attention. The hospital is already teaching its first lesson. Illness does not erase class. It makes class harder to ignore. You are led down a corridor that seems built to echo every human weakness. Coughs ricochet off the walls. A man groans somewhere behind a curtain. A woman prays in a voice so low it sounds like she is ashamed to be heard asking for help. Metal clinks against metal. Wooden wheels scrape. Doors open and close with the tired force of a building that never really sleeps. There are no soft beeps from monitors, no sealed rooms humming with filtered air, no invisible shield created by plastic packaging and sterilized convenience. Everything feels exposed. Air moves from bed to bed without permission. Hands pass from body to body. Fabric, buckets, blankets, and instruments live hard lives and carry their histories with them. This is what would break many modern people first. Not one dramatic moment, but the realization that nothing here is truly separated from anything else. And you are about to spend the next 24 hours trusting this place with your life. If you want to keep stepping into the side of history that stripped comfort away first, subscribe. Then you reach the ward, and any fantasy borrowed from polished period dramas dies on the spot. This is not a romantic hall of quiet suffering lit by angelic window light. It is crowded, public, and deeply human in the least flattering way. Beds stand close enough for strangers to hear each other breathe, mutter, retch, beg, or snore. Some patients stare blankly at the ceiling because staring is easier than talking. Others track every movement in the room with anxious eyes, terrified that the next pair of footsteps will stop by their mattress. There is little privacy and less dignity. A screen or curtain may separate bodies when available, but sound slips through cloth, smell slips through space, and fear belongs to everyone at once. You are not alone, and that somehow makes the ordeal feel even lonelier. Once you are settled, if settled is the word for being laid on a narrow bed with a thin mattress and a blanket that smells like lye and old winters, you begin to notice texture. The sheet is coarse. The pillow is flatter than it should be. The straw inside some bedding has shifted into hard ridges. Your skin itches where fabric rubs against sweat. The room is either too cold to unclench in or too hot to breathe comfortably, depending on the season, the stove, and the number of bodies packed into the space. Ventilation is a theory more than a guarantee. Windows may be opened for fresh air or shut against weather, but no setting truly fixes the problem. You are ill in a century that has mastered endurance far better than ease. Morning rounds do not feel like a gentle check-in. They feel like inspection. A doctor approaches with students or assistants, and you understand very quickly that medicine here is part care, part hierarchy, part performance. The physician may be brilliant by the standards of the time, but brilliance in the 1800s still leaves enormous blind spots. One doctor believes in fresh air, another in purging, another in bleeding, another in tonics that taste like metal and regret. Depending on where and when you are, hand washing may be practiced carefully, inconsistently, or barely at all. A clean apron or recently washed fingers can mean the difference between hope and catastrophe, yet the age has not fully agreed on that truth. For you, lying still under their gaze, the uncertainty is worse than ignorance. You know too much about what medicine will become, and too little power exists here to summon it. Questions are asked fast. Where does it hurt? How long have you had the fever? Can you stand? Can you swallow? Did you fall? Have you bled? Your answers matter, but not always in the way you would want. There are no scans to look through your skin, no antibiotics waiting in a labeled bag, no laboratory panel returning in an hour with neat rows of numbers. Diagnosis is often a contest between experience, guesswork, and whatever signs your body is dramatic enough to display. If your illness hides itself well, that is bad. If it announces itself too clearly, that may be worse. The doctor presses here, listens there, watches your face for a flinch, studies your tongue, your pulse, your color. Medicine in this room is tactile, immediate, and limited. It asks the body to confess without modern tools to interrogate it properly. Breakfast arrives if you are lucky, and it does not arrive as comfort food. This is nourishment stripped to function, and even then it does not always succeed. Broth, weak tea, bread gone dry at the edges, maybe porridge, maybe thin gruel, maybe meat if the institution is better funded and your condition is judged worthy of it. You do not eat because it tastes good. You eat because your body is losing a war, and every spoonful feels like a ration sent to a collapsing front line. Water itself is not always a simple blessing. In many places it is safer boiled, but even then the journey from source to cup is full of chances for contamination, neglect, or simple bad luck. Modern people talk about hydration as if it is basic. In this hospital, basics are fragile things. As daylight fills the ward, you start learning the rhythm of the staff, and this is where another illusion breaks. Hospitals of the 1800s do not run on graceful expertise alone. They run on labor that is underpaid, overworked, and often invisible. Someone scrubs floors, someone empties basins, someone hauls linens heavy with sweat and sickness, someone carries coal, someone washes instruments, someone lifts patients who cannot stand. Nurses, attendants, laundresses, porters, cooks, and cleaners keep the place from collapsing into complete chaos. Yet much of that work is brutal, repetitive, and rarely honored. You are lying there frightened, but even in your fear you can sense that civilization is being held together by tired people with sore backs and cracked hands. By late morning, the sounds sharpen. A cart rolls past. A basin sloshes. Boots stop outside the ward and continue on. Somewhere nearby, a patient is being prepared for a procedure, and the whole building seems to tense around it. This is where the modern mind starts begging for the present. Even in the later part of the century, when anesthesia begins to appear in some places, its reach is uneven, its administration imperfect, and its availability shaped by geography, wealth, and timing. Many patients still face treatment with less relief than you would assume possible. Pain is not merely a symptom here, it is part of the architecture. People brace for it, work around it, exhaust themselves resisting it, and when they can no longer resist, they endure it with the terrible plainness of those who have no cleaner option. If you need surgery, the emotional temperature of your day changes instantly. Surgery in the 1800s is not automatically barbaric, but neither is it remotely reassuring. Speed matters because pain, shock, and infection are always waiting in the wings. Instruments may be sharp and skillfully used, yet the idea of sterility is still unevenly respected across time and place. Aprons, sleeves, tables, saws, knives, and dressings can carry yesterday into today. A surgeon's confidence might save you. It might also expose you to dangers he cannot see. What terrifies you is not only the procedure itself, it is the total lack of safety net afterward. In a modern hospital, surgery is one controlled event inside a larger system of monitoring. Antibiotics, imaging, blood work, sterile technique, and rapid response. Here it can feel like a leap over a pit with half the bridge missing. Even if you avoid the operating table, infection hangs over the ward like weather. A small wound can sour. A cough can deepen. A fever can turn from inconvenience to omen with horrifying speed. Bodies packed closely together create their own kind of risk. So do reused materials, inconsistent sanitation, poor drainage, insects, rats, contaminated water, and the simple reality that microbes do not care whether a building was founded for charity. This is one of the hardest truths to convey in costume dramas. The 1800s hospital is not merely old-fashioned. It exists before the full power of modern infection control transforms medicine from a gamble into a system with real odds on your side. You are surrounded not only by the sick, but by conditions that can multiply sickness. At noon, time slows in the most punishing way. Pain does this, fever does this, waiting does this. You watch light crawl across the floorboards and understand that illness makes a day feel both endless and unfinished. No one can tell you exactly when you will improve. The doctor may return, or not. Your bandage may be changed soon, or after the louder emergencies are handled first. You begin to live minute by minute, listening for your own body as if it were an animal somewhere in the dark. Is the pain sharper? Is the dizziness worse? Is the heat in your forehead rising? Modern medicine spoils us with measurement. Thermometers, scans, charts, oxygen levels, medication schedules, all these things create a map. In this room, your map is mostly sensation, and sensation is a cruel guide when fear keeps redrawing the borders. The ward also forces you to become an unwilling witness. You hear other stories without asking for them. A laborer crushed at work, a child weak from a disease no one here can truly stop, a seamstress coughing herself smaller by the day, an elderly man who has lived long enough to know exactly how little stands between a bad winter and the end of everything. In a modern hospital, privacy laws and private rooms place suffering behind curtains of policy and architecture. Here, misery is communal. You cannot protect your mind from it. Another person's decline becomes part of your treatment environment. Their cries raise your pulse. Their silence unsettles you more. When someone is suddenly no longer there, nobody needs to explain what may have happened. The empty bed explains enough. What do you think would break you first in a place like this? The pain, the exposure, or the uncertainty? Then there is smell, the detail most modern imaginations still underestimate. Not because the ward is one giant cloud of horror, but because so many ordinary unpleasant things overlap without relief. Wet wool drying slowly, soap that never quite defeats what it fights, urine waiting in a bucket too long, boiled cabbage from the kitchen, damp wood, cheap tobacco from a coat left near the door, human breath after sleepless nights, old plaster, coal smoke slipping in from somewhere it should not, the odor of medicine itself, bitter and chemical and strangely helpless. Smell becomes atmosphere, and atmosphere becomes emotion. By afternoon, your nerves are not only tired from pain, they are tired from being nowhere clean enough to truly rest. You may try to sleep, but hospitals in this era do not allow the body to disappear into peace for very long. Someone is always moving, someone is coughing, someone is delirious. A basin drops, a door bangs, footsteps hurry, footsteps drag, prayers start and stop. A horse carriage outside rattles the window panes. Bells from a nearby church mark the hour with almost insulting confidence, as if time itself were calm and orderly just beyond the walls. Sleep comes in scraps. Rest is not the same thing as recovery. That distinction matters more here than modern people realize. When the body cannot rest, it cannot gather strength. And when it cannot gather strength, every treatment grows weaker than it ought to be. If you are a woman, the hospital has another layer of tension. Your pain may be judged through assumptions about nerves, modesty, hysteria, propriety, or supposed female weakness. If you are poor, those assumptions harden. If you are pregnant or recently delivered, the danger around childbirth shadows everything. If you are a child, mercy depends on who notices you and how overwhelmed they already are. If you are old, your suffering may be treated as expected, almost natural, as though age itself were permission for neglect. The hospital is not one experience. It is many experiences filtered through status, gender, age, money, and luck. Modern medicine still struggles with inequality, but here inequality is not a flaw in the system. It is one of the system's operating principles. A paying patient might secure a quieter room, better food, cleaner linens, more attention, or at least the illusion of distinction. That contrast is the part that should really make you angry. The same century that can produce exquisite drawing rooms, polished silver, silk waistcoats, and private physicians also produces wards where the poor recover in public, shoulder to shoulder with strangers, under rules shaped as much by charity budgets as by science. The gap is obscene. Wealth does not make disease fair, but it can soften the road around it. Poverty means arriving later, sicker, weaker, and then being asked to recover in conditions that fight you at every turn. Civilization likes to boast about its achievements. Hospitals in the 1800s quietly reveal who those achievements were truly built for. By late afternoon, your body starts bargaining. You would trade comfort for certainty, certainty for sleep, sleep for clean water for a pill you know works. A pill for a single nurse with gloved hands and a sealed syringe and a machine that can tell whether your lungs are failing before your face does. This is when the title becomes true. You would beg for modern medicine, not because the past had no healers worth respecting, but because modern medicine changes the emotional mathematics of illness. It gives you antibiotics, sterile supplies, imaging, anesthesia you can trust, pain control with standards, trained nursing at scale, oxygen, blood typing, vaccination, laboratory confirmation, and 1,000 small protections so ordinary that people now complain about waiting rooms while standing inside miracles. But the 1800s hospital is not only a place of medical limitation, it is also a place of moral pressure. You are expected to be patient, grateful, and obedient. Complain too much and you become troublesome. Ask too many questions and you risk being seen as difficult. Resist a treatment and you may be judged foolish, even if your fear is reasonable. There is a sternness to institutional care in this period, a sense that discipline itself is therapeutic. Beds should be orderly, bodies should submit, voices should not carry farther than necessary. Yet pain makes rebels out of people. Hunger does too. So does grief. Underneath the rules, the ward is full of private rebellions, muttered curses, hidden tears, swallowed dread, a hand gripping the mattress so hard the knuckles pale. As evening comes on, lamplight changes everything. Shadows collect in the corners of the ward. Faces lose detail. The room becomes a theater of breathing and waiting. Firelight and oil lamps are beautiful from a distance, but in a hospital, they create uncertainty. Shapes blur, expressions flatten. The night staff, however devoted, work within dimness modern medicine would never tolerate. If your condition changes after dark, it may be noticed through instinct before instruments. A good nurse hears danger in your breathing. A good doctor sees trouble in your skin tone. But hearing and seeing are still human powers, limited by exhaustion and light. The dark makes every worsening symptom feel more intimate and more terrifying. Night also exposes the emotional cost of being sick in public. You miss your own bed, even if your own bed is poor. You miss your family, unless your family is part of the reason you delayed treatment. You miss the simple right to close a door. Homesickness is not trivial here. It drains the will. The ward strips you down, not just physically, but socially. Your clothes are gone or folded somewhere out of reach. Your money, if you have any, cannot purchase peace on demand. Your routines are broken. You are a body among bodies, waiting for strangers to decide what happens next. Modern hospitals can feel impersonal, but they are built around preserving life. This one still carries traces of an older belief, that the sick must endure nearly as much as they must be cured. Somewhere in the middle of the night, there is always a moment when the whole building seems to hold its breath. A cough stops. Footsteps freeze. A whisper passes from one side of the room to the other. Maybe someone has worsened. Maybe a child has finally fallen asleep. Maybe a doctor has been called. Maybe nobody knows anything yet, and uncertainty itself becomes the event. This suspended feeling is part of what would break a modern visitor. You are used to constant information. Here, silence becomes diagnosis by rumor. You measure danger by the speed of footsteps and the expression on a nurse's face. It is astonishing how quickly a person can become primitive when deprived of reliable information. In the dark, every delay feels like judgment. Toward dawn, after a night broken into fragments, your body no longer feels fully yours. Fever makes the ceiling swim. Pain hollows time out from the inside. Even improvement, when it comes, is modest. A little less heat, a little more breath, a little less shaking in the hands. Recovery in this age is rarely cinematic. It is slow, uncertain, and physically humiliating. You do not spring from bed transformed. You inch. You sit up and feel the room tilt. You test a sip of water as if negotiating with an enemy. Your body is not a machine being repaired by specialists with precise tools. It is an exhausted organism trying to survive with whatever support this century can offer. And yet, not everything here is failure. That is what makes the story more powerful, not less. There is courage in these wards, real courage. Nurses who keep moving after midnight, doctors who work with incomplete knowledge because incomplete knowledge is all their century can give them, cleaners who scrub and scrub in the hope that effort can outrun danger, patients who comfort strangers because nobody else has a free hand, families who bring broth, linen, flowers, coins, or prayers. Human care exists here in abundance. What does not exist in abundance is protection. Compassion without modern medicine is noble, but compassion with antibiotics, antisepsis, anesthesia, imaging, and intensive care is something closer to rescue. When the sun finally returns, you understand the day differently. The building is the same, but you are not. You have spent 24 hours in a place where every ordinary certainty of modern illness has vanished. There was no button to summon immediate help from a private room, no disposable gloves snapping cleanly into place, no sealed IV bag dripping measured relief, no scan revealing the hidden shape of the problem, no pharmacy downstairs stacked with answers. Only judgment, habit, limited tools, hard labor, and hope stretched thin over danger. The 1800s hospital does not make you admire the past less because people were weak. It makes you admire the present more because protection had to be invented, argued for, tested, funded, cleaned, standardized, and defended against centuries of misery. So would you survive 24 hours in an 1800s hospital? Maybe. People did. Some even recovered and went home grateful. But survival is the wrong benchmark if you are comparing that world to this one. The real question is how much uncertainty, pain, exposure, and class-shaped neglect you could tolerate before you started pleading for everything modern medicine now hides inside routine. The antiseptic wipe, the sterile bandage, the monitored heartbeat, the antibiotic tablet, the anesthesiologist you never have to thank personally because the whole system has already decided your pain matters. Spend one day in this ward, and the fantasy of the old world collapses. You stop romanticizing gaslight and horse carriages and linen caps. You start worshiping disinfectant, refrigeration, vaccines, trained nurses, and the quiet luxury of a hospital where the future has finally learned how to fight for you. And if you want to step into another chapter of history where survival depended on far less than it should have, there's more waiting on this channel.